The stars looked different today, Lee Hyun-woo thought as he stood on the bridge of the massive ship called Hope of Tomorrow. His hands gripped the metal railing so hard his knuckles turned white. The view screen showed Earth getting smaller and smaller behind them, but that was not what made his heart hurt the most. It was the burning space stations. The alien ships were destroying everything humans had built in space over the past 200 years. Shin-woo was a commander in the human Space Defense Force, but today he felt like a man watching his home burn down. The aliens had won the war after 30 long years of fighting. They called it the Great Cleansing. But humans had a different name for it. They called it the day the galaxy turned its back on them. Behind him, Dr. Park So-young held their 5-year-old daughter Mina close to her chest. The little girl was crying, but not because she understood what was happening. She was crying because everyone around her was sad and scared. So-young whispered soft words in Korean to calm her down, but her own voice was shaking. She kept looking at the view screen where Earth was now just a small blue dot. The bridge was full of people, but nobody was talking much. Everyone was watching the same thing, the destruction of everything they had ever known. Captain Kim Tae-ho stood at the center of the bridge. He was an old man with gray hair and deep lines on his face. He had fought in more battles than anyone could count, but today he looked tired, more tired than Hyun-woo had ever seen him. Kim Tae-ho pressed a button, and his voice went out to all the ships in their fleet. There were almost 1,000 ships carrying nearly 10 million humans. These were the last humans in the galaxy. All the others had been killed in the war or had died when the aliens destroyed human colonies one by one. My fellow humans, Kim Tae-ho said into the communication device, his voice steady. Despite everything, today we leave the galaxy that was our home for 300 years. The aliens think they have won. They think they have gotten rid of us forever, but they do not know what they have done. They have not destroyed us. They have set us free. Hyun-woo looked around the bridge. Everyone was listening to every word. The old admiral continued speaking. We are not running away. We are not giving up. We are going to the dark space between galaxies where no one has ever gone before. We will learn to live in the void. We will become stronger. We will become something the galaxy has never seen before, and one day we will return on the main view screen. They could see the alien ships following them. The Altarian Empire ships were huge and golden. They looked like flying palaces. The Nexari Federation ships were silver and covered in lights. They looked like they were made of crystal and metal together. Both alien races had been fighting humans for 30 years. Both had lost millions of their own people, but they had finally won. The Altarian ships stopped following when the human fleet reached the edge of the galaxy. The aliens did not want to go into the dark space between galaxies. They were afraid of what was out there. But humans had no choice. They had to go into the unknown or die. Admiral Kim Tae-ho walked over to where Hyun-woo was standing. The old man put his hand on the younger man's shoulder. We will see Earth again, he said quietly, but when we return, we will be different. We will be ready. Hyun-woo nodded, but inside he felt lost. How could they ever return? They had only 1,000 ships. The aliens had millions of ships. They had entire planets full of warriors and weapons. How could humans ever be strong enough to come back? Dr. So-young came over to them with little Mina in her arms. The child had stopped crying and was looking at the stars with wide eyes. She pointed at the view screen and asked in her small voice, "Where are we going?" Mama So-young looked at her husband and then at Admiral Kim Tae-ho. She did not know what to say. How do you explain to a child that they are going into empty space where no one has ever lived before? How do you tell them that they might never see a real planet again? We are going to build a new home, Kim Tae-ho said. To the little girl, he knelt down so he was at her eye level. We are going to live among the stars and learn to be strong. And someday we will come back to visit Earth. Mina smiled at the old man. She did not understand the danger or the sadness. She only knew that the adults were taking care of her. That was enough for now. The last human ships passed through the galactic barrier and into the void. The darkness between galaxies was complete. There were no stars nearby, no planets, no asteroids. Nothing but empty space stretching forever in all directions. Most species would have died of fear just looking at it. But humans had learned to survive in impossible places on the alien ships that had stopped at the galactic edge. Chancellor Vexstar of the Altarian Empire was celebrating. The humans are gone forever, he told his officers. They cannot survive in the void. No one can live between galaxies. They will die in the darkness, and we will never see them again. High Technician Quindarov. The Nexari Federation was also pleased. The galaxy will finally know peace, he said to his crew. We can divide up the human territories among ourselves. There will be no more war, no more fighting. The humans were the cause of all conflict in the galaxy both. Alien leaders were wrong about humans. They thought humans were just another species that needed planets to survive. They did not understand that humans were different. Humans could adapt to anything. They could learn to live anywhere they could. Turn the worst situation into an opportunity. As the human fleet moved deeper into the void between galaxies, the ships began to change. The engineers started connecting the ships together with bridges and tunnels. The doctors began planning how to grow food in space. The teachers started thinking about how to raise children who would never see a planet. Little Mina fell asleep in her mother's arms as the ship moved into the endless darkness. She dreamed of playing in fields of stars. She dreamed of swimming in rivers of light. She dreamed of a time when humans would return to the galaxy as something new, something powerful, something the aliens could never have imagined. The exile had begun, but it would not end the way the aliens expected. It would end with humans becoming the most powerful force the galaxy had ever known. And the aliens who had forced them to leave would be the ones who would need humans the most. The darkness between galaxies was not empty. It was full of possibility. And humans were about to discover just how much they could achieve when they had nothing left to lose. 50 years had passed since the last human ship left the galaxy. Captain Cho Min-ho stood in the observation deck of New Bizun watching his crew work on the hull of their massive ship city. He was born in the void between galaxies and had never seen a real planet. His father had told him stories about Earth, but they seemed like fairy tales. Now the ship New Bizun was bigger than any city that had ever existed on Earth. It was home to 2 million people who had learned to live in the darkness. Between stars, the ship grew food in massive gardens that stretched for kilometers. The people worked in factories that made everything they needed to survive. They had schools and hospitals and parks, all floating in the endless void. Min-ho was proud of what his people had built, but he knew they were still in danger. Every day was a struggle to find enough resources to keep everyone alive. The void between galaxies was not empty like the aliens thought. It was full of ancient debris from dead civilizations and wandering asteroids that held precious metals. Engineer Yoon Hae-jin was working on a new invention in her laboratory deep inside the ship. She had spent her entire life trying to solve the problem of survival in the void. Hae-jin was born on the journey like Min-ho, but she was different. She could see solutions where others saw only problems. The machine she was building looked like a giant metal flower with crystal petals. It was designed to harvest energy from the cosmic background radiation that filled all of space. Even the empty void between galaxies had this energy, and Hae-jin had found a way to collect it and turn it into power for the ship's captain. This could change everything, Hae-jin said to Min-ho when he came to visit her laboratory. If we can build enough of these collectors, we will never run out of energy. We can power our ships forever. We can build bigger cities. We can support more people. Min-ho looked at the machine with wonder. His people had learned to do impossible things in the 50 years since the exile. They had learned to grow food without soil. They had learned to recycle everything, including the air they breathed. They had learned to live in the cold darkness of space. But unlimited energy would change everything. Dr.Seo Yoonji was working on an even more amazing project in another part of the ship. She was a biologist who had spent 30 years studying how living things could survive in space. Her laboratory was filled with strange creatures that she had created by mixing human DNA with the DNA of space creatures they had found drifting in the void. The creatures looked like a cross between jellyfish and metal. Her latest creation was a ship that was actually alive. The living ship could repair itself when it was damaged. It could grow bigger when it needed more space. It could even reproduce and make copies of itself. ONG called her creation the symbiont because it worked together with human crews. The ship could feel what the humans needed and change itself to help them. It could grow weapons when they needed to fight. It could grow shields when they needed protection. It could grow faster engines when they needed to run away. These living ships will be our future, Yoonji explained to a group of young engineers who had come to learn from her. The old metal ships from Earth were like dead things. They could break and not fix themselves, but these new ships are alive they can adapt to. Anything they can survive anything. The young engineers looked at the living ship with amazement and a little fear. It was beautiful, but also strange. Its skin moved like it was breathing, its eyes glowed with soft light, it made soft sounds like it was trying to talk to them. Back in the galaxy, the aliens were having problems. The Altarian Empire and the Nexari Federation had started fighting over the human territories. Both sides claimed that they deserved the best planets and star systems. That humans had left behind. What started as arguments became fights. What started as fights became wars. Ambassador Kong Wu Jin was working secretly with resistance groups inside the galaxy. He was one of the few humans who had been allowed to stay behind when the others were exiled. He pretended to work for the aliens, but he was really sending information back to the human fleet. The galaxy is falling apart, Wu Jin said in a secret message that he sent to the human fleet. The aliens are fighting each other, the trade routes are blocked, the peaceful species are being hurt by the wars. The galaxy needs someone to bring order, but the aliens are too busy fighting to notice. Min Ho received the message while he was eating dinner with his family. His wife Young Yi and their twin sons Kyung Ho and Sung Ho listened as he read the message aloud. The news made them all think about the home they had never seen. Maybe we should help them, Young Yi said quietly. The aliens hurt us, but they are innocent people in the galaxy who are suffering because of their wars. Min Ho looked at his wife with surprise. She had been born in the void like him. She had never seen the galaxy that had rejected their parents. Why would she want to help the people who had exiled them? Because we are human, Young Yi said as if she could read his thoughts. Humans help others even when those others have hurt them before. It is what makes us different from the aliens. The human fleet had become something amazing. In the 50 years since the exile, they had learned to work together in ways that no other species had ever managed. Everyone had a job. Everyone contributed to the survival of the whole group. There were no kings or emperors. Everyone was equal. The children who had been born in the void were different from their parents. They were stronger. They could see better in the dark. They could work in zero gravity without getting sick. They could hold their breath for hours. They were becoming something new. Lieutenant Kim Yu now was one of these void-born humans. She commanded a small patrol ship that explored the edges of the human territory. She was looking for resources and threats, but she was also looking for something else. She was looking for signs of other civilizations that might be hiding in the void. The void between galaxies was not as empty as everyone thought. Yuna had found the ruins of ancient cities floating in the darkness. She had found the remains of ships from species that had died millions of years ago. She had found technology that was more advanced than anything humans or aliens had ever built. The void is full of secrets, Yuna reported to her commanders. Every day we find something new. Every day we learn something that makes us stronger. The species that lived here before us were not weak. They were not running away. They were exploring. They were growing. They were becoming something greater. The human fleet continued to grow and change every year. They built new ships. Every year they developed new technologies. Every year they became more powerful. The exile that was supposed to destroy them was making them stronger than they had ever been. The aliens in the galaxy did not know what was happening in the void. They thought the humans were dead. They thought the problem was solved. They had no idea that humanity was becoming something that would change the galaxy forever. The wandering years were ending. The humans were ready to return, but when they came back they would not be the same species that had been forced to leave. They would be something new, something powerful, something that the galaxy had never seen before. The darkness between galaxies had taught humans to survive anything, and soon they would teach the galaxy what survival really meant. Captain Lim Subin could barely believe what she was seeing through the view screen of her scout ship. Inch in the galaxy looked like it was on fire. Entire star systems were dark where once there had been thriving worlds. The space lanes that used to be full of trade ships were now full of military vessels shooting at each other. Subin had been born in the void, but she had heard stories about how beautiful the galaxy used to be. Her grandmother had told her about worlds covered in blue oceans and green forests, about space stations that sparkled like jewels, about peaceful cities where different species lived together in harmony. The galaxy was gone now. The Altarian Empire and the Nexari Federation were destroying each other. In a war that had been going on for 20 years, the species that had once celebrated the human exile were now suffering because of the chaos that followed. The scout ship Inchin was one of 12 ships that had been sent to spy on the galaxy. The human fleet wanted to know what was happening to their former home before they decided what to do next. Subin and her crew of void-born humans had been watching the alien war for 6 months. The aliens fight like children, her second in command, Li Dongwu said as he watched an Altarian battle fleet attack a Nexari supply convoy. They destroy everything, including things they need to survive. They have no strategy, no plan, they just want to hurt each other. Subin nodded as she watched the battle. The aliens were using weapons that could destroy entire planets, but they were using them to fight over trading posts and asteroid mines. It was like watching someone burn down their house to kill a spider. The human scouts had been careful not to be seen. Their ships were designed to be invisible to alien sensors. They used technology that the void-born humans had developed from studying the ancient ruins they had found between galaxies. The aliens had no idea that humans were watching them. Colonel Park Dong-hyun was commanding a different kind of mission. On his ship, the Guangzhou, he was leading rescue operations to save civilians who were caught in the alien war. His ship had been modified to look like a civilian transport, so the aliens would not attack it. Dong-hyun had been a young soldier when the humans were exiled. Now he was an old man with gray hair and scars from battles in the void. But he still felt responsible for protecting innocent people, even if they were aliens who had once wanted humans dead. There is a refugee camp on the third planet of the Zeta system, he told his crew. The Altarians and Nexari are both trying to capture it because it has a weapons factory. The civilians are trapped in the middle. We need to get them out before the fighting starts. His crew was made up of humans who had been born in the void. They had never seen aliens before except in pictures, but they were willing to risk their lives to save them. The void had taught humans to value all life, not just human life. The rescue mission was dangerous. The refugee camp was full of Altarian and Nexari civilians who were terrified of the war. They had lost their homes, their families, their whole way of life. Some of them were children who had never known anything but war. When Dong-hyun and his crew arrived at the refugee camp, the aliens were afraid at first. They remembered the stories their parents had told them about the dangerous humans who had been exiled from the galaxy. But the humans were not there to hurt them, they were there to help. We are here to take you to safety, Dong-hyun told the refugee leaders through a translation device. We have ships that can carry you to worlds where the fighting has not reached. You will be safe there. The alien refugees could not believe what they were hearing. The humans had been exiled from the galaxy. The aliens had destroyed their colonies and killed their people. Why would humans want to help them now? Because it is the right thing to do, Dong-hyun said simply. People are suffering, we can help them, so we will help them. It does not matter that we are enemies in the past. Lieutenant Kim Yuna was on a different mission. She was leading a team of scientists who were studying the damage that the alien war had done to the galaxy. They were flying through the ruins of star systems that had been destroyed by the fighting. The devastation was worse than anyone had imagined. Entire planets had been turned into asteroid field. Space stations that had taken centuries to build were now just debris floating in space. The aliens had destroyed more in 20 years of war than humans had built in 300 years of peace. The galaxy is dying, Yuna reported to the human fleet. The aliens are using weapons that poison star systems for thousands of years. They are destroying the planets they are fighting over. They are making the galaxy uninhabitable. The scientists with her were documenting everything they saw. They were recording the damage so that the human fleet would know what they were dealing with when they returned. The galaxy that had exiled them was not the same galaxy they would be coming back to. Dr. Han-mi Young was working on a different kind of research. She was studying the alien technology that had been left behind in the ruins of destroyed space stations. She was amazed by what she found. The aliens had not developed any new technology since the humans were exiled. In fact, they seemed to have gone backwards. The aliens stopped innovating when they exiled us, she told her research team. They thought they had solved all their problems by getting rid of humans. They stopped trying to grow and improve. Now they are using the same weapons and ships they had 50 years ago, while we have become something completely different. The human technology had advanced incredibly during the exile. The living ships that Dr. Seo Yunji had created were now common in the human fleet. The energy collectors that Yun Heijin had invented were powering massive city ships that could support millions of people. The void-born humans had abilities that no other species possessed. Admiral Bei Sungmin was the grandson of one of the original exiles. He had been chosen to lead the human return to the galaxy. He stood on the bridge of his flagship Phoenix, rising, looking at the reports from all the scout missions. "The galaxy needs us," he said to his senior officers. "The aliens cannot solve their problems by themselves. They are destroying everything they touch. They need someone to stop them from destroying themselves." "But do we want to save them?" asked Captain Oh Yansu. She was the commander of the human special forces the aliens exiled. "US, they tried to destroy us. Why should we help them now? Because that is what humans do," Sungmin replied. "We do not abandon people who are suffering, even if they are our enemies. We are not returning to the galaxy to conquer it. We are returning to save it." The human fleet began to move toward the galaxy. It was a sight that would have terrified the aliens if they had seen it coming. 1,000 ships had become 10,000 ships. The small refugee fleet had become a massive armada that stretched across light years of space. The ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Some were living creatures that moved through space like whales swimming through an ocean. Others were mechanical marvels that seemed to bend space and time around them. All of them were crewed by humans who had been forged in the void into something stronger than any species the galaxy had ever known. The humans were coming home, but they were not the same species that had been forced to leave. They were something new, something the galaxy had never seen before, something that would change everything. The aliens had thought they were getting rid of a problem when they exiled humanity. Instead, they had created the solution to all their problems. They just did not know it, yet the return was about to begin, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The Battle of Kepler Prime was supposed to be the final battle between the Altarian Empire and the Nexari Federation. Both sides had brought their most powerful fleets to fight for control of the star system that contained the galaxy's most important trade routes. Admiral Zexkul of the Altarians commanded 3,000 ships. Admiral Quinsar of the Nexari had brought 4,000 ships. The battle had been raging for 3 days. Both sides were losing ships and lives, but neither side was willing to give up. The space around Kepler Prime was filled with debris from destroyed vessels. The nearby planets were being bombarded by stray weapons fire. Millions of civilians were trapped on the worlds below. Then something impossible happened. The stars themselves seemed to come alive. Ships appeared out of nowhere, emerging from what looked like tears in space itself. The ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Some looked like living creatures with skin that pulsed and breathed. Others looked like they were made of pure energy wrapped in metal. Admiral Bei Sunmin stood on the bridge of his flagship Phoenix, rising, watching the alien fleets through his view screen. The human fleet had arrived at the perfect moment. The aliens were so busy fighting each other that they had not noticed the humans approaching. "This is Admiral Bei Sungmin of the Human Protectorate Fleet," he broadcast on all frequencies. "To both alien fleets, cease fire immediately and withdraw your forces from this system. You are endangering civilian populations and violating the peace." The alien admirals could not believe what they were hearing. Humans were supposed to be extinct. They had been exiled from the galaxy 50 years ago. How could they have ships that were more advanced than anything the aliens possessed? Admiral Zexkul was the first to respond. "Human scum, you have no authority here. This is Altarian space, and we will destroy any ship that interferes with our righteous war." Admiral Quinsar agreed with his enemy. For the first time in 20 years, the humans are criminals who were banished from civilized space. "We do not recognize their right to exist in this galaxy." Admiral Sungmin sighed. He had hoped the aliens would listen to reason, but he had expected this response. The void had taught humans to be patient, but it had also taught them to be decisive when patience failed. "Captain Oh Yansu," he said to his tactical officer, "you may begin the demonstration." Captain Oh Yansu commanded a squadron of 12 ships that had been specially designed for this moment. The ships were small compared to the massive alien battleships, but they moved through space like schools of fish swimming through water. Each ship was controlled by a void-born human who could react faster than any computer. The Human ships moved toward the alien fleets with incredible speed. The aliens tried to shoot them down, but the human ships seemed to phase in and out of existence. The alien weapons passed right through them as if they were not really there. When the human ships reached the alien fleets, they did something that shocked everyone watching. They did not attack the aliens. Instead, they seemed to touch each alien ship gently, and then move on to the next one. Within minutes, every alien ship in both fleets had gone dark. Their engines stopped working, their weapons stopped firing. Their life support systems were still running, but everything else had been shut down. 7,000 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy had been disabled by 12 small human ships. How did you do that, Admiral? Zaxkul demanded over the communication system. His voice was shaking with fear and anger. The humans have developed technology that can manipulate space and time itself, explained Dr. Han Mi-young from her position at the science station. We can phase our ships out of normal space to avoid your weapons. We can reach into your ships and shut down their systems without damaging. The alien admirals were silent. They had never seen technology like this. It was like magic, but it was real and it was being used against them. You have a choice. Admiral Sungmin said calmly, you can withdraw your fleets and agree to a ceasefire. Or we can disable every military ship in the galaxy. It makes no difference to us. We have the power to enforce peace whether you cooperate or not. The aliens had no choice. They ordered their fleets to withdraw from Kepler. Prime, the humans had demonstrated that they could stop any battle anywhere in the galaxy. The age of alien wars was over. Captain Nam Su-jin was commanding the construction of the first human Guardian station. It was being built in the space between 3 major star systems where it could monitor all the important trade routes in that sector of the galaxy. The station was massive, bigger than most planets, and it was alive like the human ships. It could repair itself, it could grow bigger when needed, and it could produce smaller ships to patrol the surrounding space. The station was powered by the same energy collectors that Yoon Hae-jin had invented in the void. The aliens watched in amazement as the human station grew from nothing to a massive complex in just a few weeks. The humans were using construction techniques that seemed impossible. They were building with living materials that could shape themselves into whatever was needed. Dr. Co. Yoonji was overseeing the biological components of the station. She had spent years in the void developing the technology that made it possible. The station was not just a building, it was a living organism that could think and respond to threats. The station can defend itself against any attack, she explained to Captain Nam Su-jin. If someone tries to attack it, the station will grow armor and weapons to protect itself. If someone tries to board it, the station will seal itself and trap the intruders. The Guardian station was also home to thousands of human families who had volunteered to be the first peacekeepers in the galaxy. These humans had been born in the void and raised to believe that their purpose was to protect innocent people from violence and war. Young Lieutenant Park Jin-woo was one of the new Guardians. He commanded a patrol ship that monitored the space around the station. His crew was made up of void-born humans who had abilities that amazed the aliens they encountered. The patrol ship could move faster than light without using the hyperspace engines that other species relied on. It could become invisible to sensors. It could communicate across vast distances instantly. The crew could survive in the vacuum of space without protection if necessary. When Lieutenant Park Jin-woo encountered alien ships that were carrying weapons to war zones, he would simply disable their engines and escort them to the Guardian station. The aliens would be held there until they agreed to stop supporting the war the humans are not conquering. Yes, observed Ambassador Kang Woo-jin, who had finally revealed himself after years of working in secret. They are protecting us from ourselves. They are stopping the wars that we could not stop. The alien governments were confused by the human approach. The humans had the power to conquer the entire galaxy, but they were using that power to prevent conquest. They were stopping violence instead of causing it. They were protecting the weak instead of exploiting them. Chancellor Vextar of the Altarian Empire called for a meeting with the human leaders. He had been one of the strongest supporters of the human exile 50 years ago. Now he was desperate to understand what the humans wanted. What do you want from us? He asked Admiral Sungmin during A secret meeting. We know you could destroy us all. Why do you not take revenge for what we did to you? We want the galaxy to be peaceful and safe. Admiral Sungmin replied, we want species to trade with each other instead of fighting each other. We want children to grow up without fear of war. We want to protect life, not destroy it. But why help us after we exiled you? Vextar asked. You have every right to hate us. Hate is a poison that destroys the one who carries it, Sungmin said. The void taught us that survival requires cooperation, not domination. We survived because we learned to work together. We want to teach the galaxy the same lesson. The humans began building guardian stations throughout the galaxy. Each station was placed at a strategic location where it could monitor multiple star systems. The stations were connected by a communication network that allowed them to coordinate their activities across vast distances. The galaxy was being transformed. The trade routes that had been disrupted by war were reopened under human protection. The refugee camps that had been created by the fighting were supplied with food and medicine by human ships. The civilians who had been trapped in war zones were evacuated to safety. The aliens slowly began to realize that the humans were not their enemies anymore. The humans were their protectors. The species that had been exiled from the galaxy had returned as its guardians. The new order was beginning, and for the first time in 20 years the galaxy was at peace. The Altarian remnant fleet had been hiding in the outer rim of the galaxy for 2 years. Admiral Kexval was the last of the old guard commanders, who refused to accept the new order where humans were the peacekeepers. He had gathered the most extreme Altarian warriors who still believed that aliens should rule the galaxy, not humans. Kexval commanded 200 ships filled with soldiers who had spent their entire lives fighting. The Altarian Empire had officially surrendered to the human protectorate. But these warriors had refused to lay down their weapons. They had been launching surprise attacks on human stations and ships. Hoping to spark a new war today, they were going to attack Guardian Station 7, the newest human outpost in the sector. The station was commanded by Captain Shin Jae-won, a void-born human who had never seen the old galaxy. His crew was made up of young humans who had been raised to believe that their purpose was to protect all life. The Altarian ships approached the human station using stealth technology that they had stolen from abandoned Nexari facilities. They thought they could surprise the humans and destroy the station before help could arrive. They were wrong. Captain Shin Jae-won was sitting in the station's command center when the alarm sounded. The station's living sensors had detected the approaching Altarian fleet hours before they arrived. The humans had been preparing for this attack since the moment the Altarians had left their hiding. Place all crew to battle stations, J1 announced calmly. His voice carried through the entire station, reaching every human who lived and worked there. The station is under attack by Altarian forces. We will defend ourselves and protect the civilians. In this sector, the Guardian Station began to change as the humans prepared for battle. The living walls grew armor plating. The peaceful gardens retracted into protected chambers. Weapon systems emerged from hidden compartments. The station transformed from a peaceful outpost into a fortress, but the humans were not planning to fight a traditional battle. They had learned different lessons during their exile in the void. They had learned that the best way to win a war was to make the enemy understand that war was pointless. The Altarian fleet opened fire on the station as soon as they came within range. Their weapons were powerful enough to destroy entire cities, but they had no effect on the Guardian Station. The living armor absorbed the energy from the weapons and used it to make the station stronger. Admiral Kexval watched in horror as his most powerful weapons failed to damage a human station. How is this possible? He demanded of his tactical officers. Our weapons should be able to crack planets. The humans have developed defensive technology that we do not understand, his chief science officer reported. The station is not just deflecting our weapons, it is feeding on them. Our attacks are making it stronger. Captain Shin Jae-won opened a communication channel to the Altarian fleet. Admiral Kexval, your attack has failed. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your ships cannot escape our sensor net. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated with respect. Never, Kexval screamed back. We will fight to the last ship. We will never surrender to human scum. J1 sighed. The Void had taught humans to be patient, but some people could not be reasoned with. The Altarians had chosen to fight instead of accepting peace. Now they would Face the consequences of that choice. The Guardian Station released a swarm of small ships that moved through space like angry insects. The ships were controlled by void-born humans who could think and react faster than any computer they moved through. The Altarian fleet disabling ship after ship with surgical precision, the human ships did not destroy the Altarian vessels. They simply shut down their engines and weapon systems. The Altarian crews were left floating helplessly in space, unable to fight, but still alive. Within an hour, the entire Altarian remnant fleet had been captured. 200 ships that had taken decades to build were now powerless, the last organized resistance to the human peacekeepers had been defeated. Admiral Kexval found himself standing in the detention center of Guardian Station 7. He was surrounded by his officers who looked defeated and ashamed. They had been the elite warriors of the Altarian Empire, but they had been defeated by humans who barely looked old enough to be soldiers. Captain Shin Jae-won came to visit the prisoners. He was a young man with calm eyes and a gentle manner. He did not look like a warrior, but the Altarians had learned that appearances could be deceiving. "Why do you not kill us?" Admiral Kexval asked. His voice was bitter with defeat. "We are your enemies. We have killed your people. We deserve death because killing you would not solve anything." Jae-won replied, "We do not want revenge. We want peace. Your people are suffering because of these wars. We want to help them find a better way to live." The Altarian admiral stared at the young human with confusion. In the old galaxy, enemies killed each other or enslaved each other. They did not offer help to those who had tried to destroy them. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Nexari Federation was facing its own crisis. The civil war that had been raging for 20 years had finally reached the Nexari homeworld. The planet was being torn apart by fighting between different factions. High Technician Quindar had been one of the original supporters of the human exile. Now he was the leader of the largest Nexari faction, and he was losing the war. His people were dying, his cities were being destroyed, and his enemies were closing in on the capital. In desperation, he did something that would have been unthinkable a few years ago. He sent a message to the Human Protectorate asking for help. Commander Ru Hyun-young received the message while she was patrolling the border between human and Nexari space. She was the daughter of refugees who had been forced to leave their home when the humans were exiled. Now she was being asked to save the people who had supported that exile. The irony was not lost on her. But Hyun-young had been raised in the void where humans had learned that survival required cooperation, not revenge. The message from Quindar was not a trick or a trap. It was a desperate plea from a leader who had run out of options. "I will help you," she replied to the Nexari leader, "but there will be conditions. You must agree to a permanent ceasefire. You must allow human peacekeepers to monitor your territory. You must stop developing weapons that can destroy planets." Quindar agreed to all the conditions. He had no choice. His people were dying, and the humans were the only ones who could save them. The human rescue operation was massive. A fleet of living ships moved into Nexari space, carrying medical supplies, food, and peacekeeping forces. The humans worked around the clock to evacuate civilians from war zones and provide aid to the wounded. Chief Engineer Lee Sang-hee was overseeing the construction of emergency shelters for Nexari refugees. Her team was using human technology to build cities that could house millions of people. The structures were grown rather than built using the same biological techniques that had been developed in the void. The Nexari refugees were amazed by the human shelters. The buildings were alive and could adapt to the needs of their inhabitants. They provided perfect climate control. They recycled all waste, and they could repair themselves when damaged. "Why are you helping us?" a young Nexari child asked Lee Sang-hee through a translation device. "We were told that humans were evil and dangerous." "Humans are not evil," the engineer replied gently. "We are protectors. We help people who are in trouble. It does not matter if they are human or alien. All life is precious." Dr. Han-mi-young was working with Nexari scientists to develop new technologies that could help rebuild their civilization. She was sharing human knowledge freely, even though the Nexari had once been enemies. "The void taught us that knowledge belongs to everyone," she explained to her Nexari colleagues. "When we share what we know, everyone becomes stronger. When we hoard knowledge, everyone becomes weaker." The galaxy was learning that humans had returned as something completely different from what they had been before. The species that had been exiled for being too aggressive had become the most peaceful force in the galaxy. The people who had been feared for their violence were now the greatest protectors of peace. The aliens who had celebrated the human exile were now dependent on human protection. The consequences of their actions 50 years ago were finally becoming clear. They had not gotten rid of a problem, they had created their own salvation. The reckoning was complete. The galaxy belonged to those who protected it, not those who tried to conquer it. And the humans had proven that they were the greatest protectors the galaxy had ever known. The Great Hall of the Rebuilt Galactic Council was filled with representatives from 300 species. Admiral Zheng Kyung-soo stood at the center of the chamber wearing the simple uniform of the human protectorate. The uniform had no medals or decorations because the humans had learned that true authority came from service, not from symbols. The alien representatives looked at the human admiral with a mixture of respect and amazement. 50 years ago, their predecessors had voted to exile humanity from the galaxy. They had thought they were getting rid of a dangerous problem. Now they were looking at the solution to all their problems. The old Galactic Council had been destroyed during the wars that followed the human exile. The new council chamber was built using human technology. It was a living structure that could grow and change to accommodate more species. The walls pulsed gently with a soft light that made everyone feel calm and peaceful. My fellow beings, Admiral Kyung-soo began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber without any amplification. We are here to establish a new order based on protection rather than domination. We are here to build a galaxy where all species can live in peace. The alien representatives listened carefully. They had learned that when humans spoke, everyone benefited from listening. The species that had once been considered outcasts had become the most respected voices in the galaxy. Ambassador Zerthek of the Nexari Federation stood up to speak. His people had been on the verge of extinction when the humans returned to save them. Now they were some of the strongest supporters of the human protectorate. The Nexari Federation formally requests membership in the Human Protectorate. He announced, we pledge to follow the principles of protection and cooperation that have brought peace to our galaxy. One by one, the other species made similar declarations. The Altarian Empire, the Zephyrian Collective, the Thorian Republic, and dozens of other civilizations all asked to join the new order that the humans had created. The humans had not conquered the galaxy through force, they had won it through example. They had shown that strength could be used to protect rather than destroy. They had proven that cooperation was more powerful than competition. Captain Nam Soo-jin was training the newest generation of Guardian officers in the academy on Guardian Station Prime. These young humans had been born in the void and raised to believe that their purpose was to serve and protect all life in the galaxy. The academy was built inside a massive living ship that could travel throughout the galaxy. The students learned by actually helping with peacekeeping missions. They rescued refugees, provided disaster relief, and mediated disputes between species. Today, Nam Soo-jin was teaching a class about the history of the galaxy. The students were learning about the old days when species fought each other for territory and resources. They found it hard to believe that such a violent time had ever existed. Why did the old species fight so much? Asked young cadet Park Yoo-jin. She had been born on a Guardian station and had never seen violence or war. They fought because they did not understand that cooperation makes everyone stronger, Nam Soo-jin explained. They thought that for one species to succeed, another species had to fail. They did not realize that when everyone works together, everyone benefits. The students nodded as they took notes. They were learning about concepts that seemed foreign to them. The void-born humans had been raised to share and cooperate. They could not understand why anyone would choose conflict over collaboration. Dr. Choi Yoon-young was teaching alien children at the Intercultural Academy on the peaceful world of Haven Prime. The planet had been devastated by war before the humans arrived. Now it was a garden world where species from across the galaxy lived together in harmony. The classroom was filled with children from dozens of different species. They were learning to speak multiple languages and to understand different cultures. The human teacher was helping them see that differences between species were something to celebrate, not something to fear. Can you tell me about the great exile, Doctor?